The clock on the wall read 9:47 a.m. when Tyler walked into courtroom number 3. His sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, and he could feel every eye in the room turned toward him. He was wearing his usual outfit, a hoodie, jeans, and the same backpack he'd carried since his freshman year of college. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed, "I'm here to fight a traffic ticket." Judge Henderson looked up from her papers and her expression said everything. Her eyebrows went up, her lips pressed into a thin line, and she exchanged a quick glance with her bailiff. Tyler had seen that look before. It was the same look his professors gave him when he showed up to his first day of law school, looking like he'd wandered into the wrong building. Case number 47B, the bailiff announced in a bored voice. Traffic violation, failure to stop at a marked intersection. Tyler walked to the defendant's table and set his backpack down. He unzipped it slowly, pulling out his tablet and a thin blue folder. The courtroom was one of those old ones with high ceilings and dark wood everywhere. It smelled like old books and floor polish. About a dozen other people sat in the gallery waiting for their own cases to be called. "You're the defendant?" Judge Henderson asked, looking at her computer screen and then back at him. "Yes, ma'am, Your Honor." Tyler corrected himself quickly. She didn't look impressed. "Do you know what you're here for today?" "Yes, Your Honor. I received a citation on August 15th for allegedly running a stop sign at Maple and 5th. Allegedly, she repeated, and there was something sharp in her voice. "Young man, did your parents not teach you how to dress for court?" Tyler felt his face get warm. "I apologize, Your Honor. I came straight from my job. I didn't have time to change." The judge made a small sound that might have been a laugh or a scoff. "Your job? I see." She didn't ask what job. She clearly didn't care. "Well, since you're already here, let's get this over with. Prosecutor Walsh, please present your case." The prosecutor stood up. He was an older guy, maybe 50, with gray hair and a suit that probably cost more than Tyler's entire wardrobe. He looked like he'd done this 1,000 times before and expected to win just as easily as always. "Your Honor, this is a simple matter. On August 15th at 3:47 in the afternoon, Officer Rodriguez observed the defendant's vehicle fail to come to a complete stop at the intersection of Maple and 5th Street. The defendant rolled through the stop sign at approximately 15 miles per hour. This caused another vehicle to brake suddenly to avoid a collision. The defendant was cited under Municipal Code 46.2833. We have the officer here to testify." Officer Rodriguez stood up and walked to the witness stand. He was a big guy with a mustache and the kind of posture that came from years in uniform. After he was sworn in, he told his version of what happened. He'd been sitting in his patrol car 2 blocks away. He saw Tyler's car approach the intersection. He saw it roll through the stop sign without stopping. He saw the other car hit its brakes. He pulled Tyler over and wrote the ticket. Simple as that. Judge Henderson nodded along like she'd heard this story 100 times, because she probably had. Tyler watched her face and could tell she was already making up her mind. Guilty, pay the fine. "Next case." "Your Honor," Tyler said, raising his hand slightly. She looked at him like she'd forgotten he was there. "Yes? May I present my defense?" The judge sighed. Actually sighed, like he was wasting her time. "Make it quick. I have 30 more cases to get through today." "Thank you, Your Honor." Tyler stood up and picked up his tablet. "I'd like to start by asking you to look at the specific code that Officer Rodriguez cited. Municipal Code 46.2833. "I know the code," Judge Henderson said, her patience clearly wearing thin. "It requires drivers to come to a complete stop at stop signs." "What's your point?" "I agree with that interpretation, Your Honor. I'm not disputing what the code says." Tyler tapped his tablet screen. "I'm disputing whether that code applied to me on August 15th at that specific intersection." The prosecutor, Walsh, glanced over at Tyler with a slightly confused look. This clearly wasn't the defense he was expecting. Judge Henderson leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" "There was a stop sign. You didn't stop. It's pretty straightforward. With respect, Your Honor, I'd like to present some evidence I gathered." Tyler held up his tablet. "I have photographs of the intersection taken 3 days after I received my citation. May I approach?" The judge waved her hand impatiently. "Fine. Bring it here." Tyler walked up to the bench, his heart pounding but his hands steady. He'd practiced this moment in his head about 50 times. He turned the tablet so the judge could see it clearly. The first photo showed the intersection from the perspective of someone driving down Maple Street. This was taken on August 18th at 4 p.m., very close to the same time of day as my citation. As you can see, there's no stop sign visible on Maple Street at this intersection. Judge Henderson squinted at the screen. The photo quality isn't great. Maybe you just didn't capture it. Tyler swiped to the next photo. This one was a close-up of a metal pole at the corner of the intersection. There were bolt holes and a mounting bracket, but no sign. Just empty space where a sign should have been. This is the pole where the stop sign would have been mounted. Your Honor, as you can see, the hardware is still there, but the sign itself was removed. Walsh stepped closer, craning his neck to see the screen. His confident expression was starting to crack. I also pulled the records from the county traffic department. Tyler continued, swiping to another document. On February 3rd of this year, the county commissioners passed Resolution 2024-156. This resolution reclassified the intersection of Maple and 5th from a four-way stop to a two-way stop. The stop signs on 5th Street were kept. The stop signs on Maple Street were removed. The courtroom had gone completely quiet. Even the people in the gallery had stopped whispering. Tyler looked directly at Judge Henderson. I was driving on Maple Street, Your Honor, the street that no longer requires a stop. So while Officer Rodriguez may have seen me proceed through the intersection without stopping, I wasn't legally required to stop. The code he cited doesn't apply because there was no enforceable stop sign at that location for traffic on Maple Street. Judge Henderson stared at the tablet screen for a long moment. Then she looked at Officer Rodriguez, then at Walsh, then back at Tyler. Where did you learn to research like this? She asked quietly. Tyler shrugged. I read a lot, Your Honor. Judge Henderson sat back in her chair and rubbed her temples. Tyler could see the wheels turning in her head. This wasn't how her Tuesday morning was supposed to go. She looked at Walsh, who had gone from confident to completely bewildered in about 30 seconds. Counselor Walsh, did you verify the status of the stop signs at this intersection before bringing this case? She asked. Walsh cleared his throat. Your Honor, we rely on the officer's testimony and the citation. If Officer Rodriguez says there was a violation, we proceed based on that information. That's not what I asked, the judge said, her voice getting that edge again. But this time it wasn't aimed at Tyler. Officer Rodriguez stood up from the witness stand. Your Honor, if I may, I've been patrolling that area for 6 years. That intersection has always been a four-way stop. I know it like the back of my hand. Tyler turned to face the officer. Officer Rodriguez, when was the last time you actually drove through that specific intersection before August 15th? The officer blinked. I'm not sure exactly. I patrol that neighborhood regularly. But you don't remember the specific date? Tyler pressed gently. No, I don't keep a log of every intersection I drive through, Rodriguez said, his voice getting defensive. Tyler nodded and turned back to his tablet. Your Honor, may I ask the officer a few more questions? Judge Henderson waved her hand. Go ahead. This case just got a lot more interesting than I expected. Tyler looked at the officer again. Officer Rodriguez, in your report, you stated that you observed my vehicle from your patrol car parked 2 blocks east of the intersection. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. And you said I was traveling at approximately 15 miles per hour when I went through the intersection? Yes. Did you use radar to measure my speed? Rodriguez shifted his weight. No, I estimated based on my experience. Tyler swiped to another photo on his tablet. This is a photo showing the sight line from where you said you were parked to the intersection. As you can see, there are 3 large oak trees and a delivery truck that was parked on the street that day. How were you able to clearly see my vehicle's speed and whether I stopped or didn't stop from that distance with these obstructions? The officer stared at the photo. A vein in his neck started to pulse. I had a clear view. I know what I saw. But you didn't have a clear view, did you? Tyler's voice was still polite, but there was steel underneath now. Because if you had driven through that intersection recently, you would have noticed that the stop signs on Maple Street were gone. And if you were really 2 blocks away behind multiple obstructions, you couldn't have accurately judged my speed or seen whether I came to a complete stop. Walsh interrupted. Your Honor, the defendant is badgering the witness. No, he's not, Judge Henderson said quietly. She was leaning forward now, paying complete attention. He's asking legitimate questions. Continue. Tyler pulled out his blue folder and removed a printed document. Your Honor, This is a copy of Resolution 2024-156 that I mentioned earlier. It's publicly available on the county website. The resolution was passed on February 3rd, and the sign changes were implemented by February 28th. That's almost 6 months before my citation. He handed the document to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. She put on her reading glasses and scanned through it, her expression growing more serious with each line. Officer Rodriguez, Tyler continued, isn't it possible that you assumed the intersection was still a four-way stop because that's what you remembered? But you hadn't actually noticed the signs were removed? The officer's face had gone red. I know that intersection. I'm sure you do. But knowing an intersection and being aware of recent changes are two different things. Tyler pulled out another document. I also have a copy of the county's notification to the police department about this change. It was sent on February 10th. Did you receive any briefing or memo about intersection changes in your patrol area? Rodriguez looked at Walsh for help, but the prosecutor had nothing to offer. There are a lot of memos. I might have missed that one. Judge Henderson took off her glasses and set them down slowly. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. She looked at Tyler like she was seeing him for the first time. Young man, where did you say you work? I didn't, Your Honor, Tyler said. But I work at Morrison & Associates downtown. I'm a legal researcher. That was true. Technically, he did research for the firm. He just left out the part about also being a licensed attorney who'd passed the bar exam 3 months ago. He wasn't lying. He just wasn't telling the whole truth yet. A legal researcher, the judge repeated slowly. She looked down at his hoodie and jeans again, and this time there was something different in her expression. Not contempt, more like embarrassment. Walsh finally found his voice. Your Honor, even if there's some confusion about the signage, the defendant's vehicle still caused another car to brake suddenly. That's reckless driving. Tyler was ready for this. May I address that point, Your Honor? Please do, she said. And there was almost curiosity in her voice now. The citation states that another vehicle had to brake suddenly, but it doesn't specify why. Tyler pulled up another document on his tablet. I filed a public records request for any accident reports or additional incidents at that intersection on August 15th. There were none. I also requested the dashcam footage from Officer Rodriguez's patrol car. Walsh's face went pale. Dashcam footage? Yes. All patrol cars in this district are equipped with dash cams that run continuously during shifts. I submitted the request 4 weeks ago. Tyler looked directly at Walsh. I never received the footage. In fact, I was told the footage from that day was unavailable due to a technical malfunction. Judge Henderson's eyes narrowed. Is that true, Officer Rodriguez? The officer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Your Honor, sometimes the cameras do malfunction. How convenient, Tyler said softly. A malfunction on the exact day and time that would have provided definitive proof of what happened. The judge held up her hand. That's enough. I've heard plenty. She looked at Tyler for a long moment, then at Officer Rodriguez, then at Walsh. I'm calling a 15-minute recess. When we return, I want answers. Real answers. She stood up and everyone else stood too. As she walked toward her chambers, Tyler could hear her heels clicking against the floor, each step sounding like a hammer hitting a nail. Walsh grabbed his briefcase and rushed toward the door, probably to make some phone calls. Officer Rodriguez sat down heavily in the witness chair, looking defeated. Tyler stayed at the defendant's table, organizing his papers. His hands were shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was wearing off. The bailiff walked over and looked down at him. Son, you just made that judge realize she judged you before you even opened your mouth, he said quietly. That took guts. Tyler looked up and smiled a little. I just want a fair hearing. That's all? Well, you're getting one now, the bailiff said. Maybe more than you bargained for. Tyler walked out into the hallway during the recess. His legs felt a little wobbly, like he'd just run a marathon. He found a bench near a water fountain and sat down, pulling out his phone. 3 missed calls from his mom and 2 texts asking how court went. He'd call her back later. A woman sitting across from him was staring. She was probably there for her own case, but she'd clearly been watching his. That was incredible, she said. Are you really just a legal researcher? Tyler gave her a tired smile. It's complicated. Before she could ask more, the bailiff poked his head out of the courtroom. We're resuming in 2 minutes. Better get back in there, son. When Tyler walked back into the courtroom, the atmosphere had completely changed. Walsh was sitting at the prosecutor's table looking like someone had just told him his dog died. Officer Rodriguez was standing near the back, having a quiet but intense conversation with another officer. And Judge Henderson was already at her bench reading something on her computer screen with a deep frown. Everyone took their seats. The judge didn't waste any time. "I've spent the last 15 minutes making some phone calls and reviewing some records," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was anger simmering underneath. "Officer Rodriguez, I want you to answer a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you do. Did you actually witness this defendant's vehicle at the intersection on August 15th? Or did you assume he must have run a stop sign because you weren't aware the signs had been removed?" The courtroom went dead silent. Officer Rodriguez stood there with his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Tyler watched him, feeling almost sorry for the guy. "Your Honor, Rodriguez started, then stopped. He looked at Walsh, then at Tyler, then back at the judge. "I saw a vehicle go through the intersection without stopping. In my experience, that intersection required a stop. I believed I was doing my job correctly." "That's not what I asked," Judge Henderson said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Did you know on August 15th that the stop signs on Maple Street had been removed?" A long pause. Then quietly, "No, Your Honor, I didn't know." The judge closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she looked directly at Tyler. "Mr. Chen, I owe you an apology. When you walked into my courtroom this morning, I made assumptions about you based on your appearance and age. I was dismissive, rude, and unprofessional. That's not acceptable behavior from someone in my position." Tyler hadn't expected that. "Your Honor, She held up a hand. "Let me finish. In my 15 years on this bench, I'd like to think I've been fair. But what you've shown me today is that I haven't been as fair as I thought. You've demonstrated more legal knowledge and preparation than many attorneys twice your age who appear in my courtroom, and I almost didn't let you present your case because I'd already decided what kind of person you were." Walsh stood up. "Your Honor, if I may, the state would like to withdraw the charges against Mr. Chen. It's clear there was a misunderstanding about the intersection signage." "Sit down, counselor," the judge said, and Walsh sat down fast. "We're not done here." She turned back to Tyler. "Mr. Chen, you said you're a legal researcher at Morrison & Associates. That's one of the most prestigious firms in the state. They don't hire just anyone for that position. So I'm going to ask you directly, what's your real background?" Tyler took a breath. This was the moment he'd been both wanting and dreading. "Your Honor, I graduated from high school when I was 14. I finished my undergraduate degree at 16. I completed law school at 19 and passed the bar exam on my first attempt 3 months ago. I'm currently waiting for my admission ceremony to officially practice law." You could have heard a pin drop. Someone in the gallery actually gasped. Judge Henderson stared at him. "You're a licensed attorney?" "Not officially yet, Your Honor. I've passed the bar but haven't been sworn in." "That's why I said I work as a legal researcher." "It's technically true. Why didn't you mention this at the start?" she asked, but her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was something else. Curious, maybe? Or impressed? "Because I wanted to see if justice would be served based on the facts of my case, not on my credentials," Tyler said. "I wanted to know if a 19-year-old in a hoodie would get the same fair hearing as a 50-year-old attorney in a suit." The judge leaned back in her chair. "And did you?" "Not at first, Your Honor. With respect, you'd already decided I was just some kid wasting your time before I said a single word." She winced but didn't argue. "You're right. I had." Tyler reached into his backpack and pulled out a thick binder. "Your Honor, if I may, there's something else I'd like to address." "More?" Walsh muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Tyler walked up to the bench and handed the binder to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. "For the past 6 months, I've been conducting research on this courthouse, specifically on sentencing patterns and case outcomes." Judge Henderson opened the binder, and her expression went from curious to concerned as she flipped through the pages. There were charts, graphs, and statistical analyses. "What I found," Tyler continued, "is a pattern. Young defendants, especially those who appear to be from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, receive harsher sentences and higher fines for identical violations compared to older, professionally dressed defendants. The disparity is significant and consistent." The judge kept reading, her face getting more serious with each page. "You're accusing me of bias?" "Not just you, Your Honor. This is a systemic issue across multiple courtrooms in this district. I've documented over 300 cases from the past 2 years. Tyler's voice was steady but gentle. I don't think it's intentional. I think it's unconscious bias that affects how justice is administered. Walsh stood up again. Your Honor, this is completely inappropriate. The defendant is making serious allegations without... He has documentation. Judge Henderson interrupted, still reading. Very thorough documentation. She looked up at Tyler. This is why you dressed this way today, isn't it? You wanted to experience it firsthand. Yes, Your Honor. I've been studying the statistics, but I wanted to understand what it actually feels like. How it feels to walk into a courtroom and be dismissed before you even speak. If I feel that way with all my education and advantages, imagine how it must feel for someone who doesn't have those resources. The judge closed the binder and set it down carefully. She was quiet for a long time, just thinking. Everyone in the courtroom waited. Finally, she spoke. Mr. Chen, what's your intention with this research? Tyler met her eyes. I want to help fix the system, Your Honor. I've already been in contact with several legal advocacy groups and civil rights organizations. We're developing training programs for judges and court officials about implicit bias. I'm also planning to publish my findings in legal journals. You're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, she said. I know, but uncomfortable conversations are the only way things change. Judge Henderson picked up her gavel but didn't bang it yet. Your case is dismissed. All charges dropped. Court costs waived. Then she did something Tyler didn't expect. She smiled just a little. Mr. Chen, when is your admission ceremony? November 12th, Your Honor. I'd like to attend if you don't mind. And after that, I'd like to discuss your research further. I think you might be exactly what this court system needs. The news spread faster than Tyler expected. By that afternoon, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A reporter from the local paper wanted an interview. A professor from his old law school sent a congratulatory email. His mom called crying happy tears, saying she always knew he'd do something important. But the call that surprised him most came 3 days later from Judge Henderson herself. Mr. Chen, this is Judge Patricia Henderson. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Tyler had been in the middle of organizing files at Morrison and Associates, but he immediately found an empty conference room. Of course, Your Honor, is everything okay? More than okay, she said, and he could hear something in her voice he hadn't heard in court. Excitement, maybe. I've been reading your research every night since Tuesday. I can't stop thinking about it. You've identified patterns I've been blind to for years. Tyler sat down at the conference table. Your Honor, I want to be clear that I'm not trying to attack you or any individual judge. This is about the system. I know that, and you're right. That's what makes it so important. She paused and he heard papers rustling in the background. I presented your findings to 3 other judges yesterday. Confidentially, of course. We had a 2-hour discussion about it. It was uncomfortable but necessary. How did they react? Defensively at first. Nobody wants to think they're part of the problem. But once we really looked at the data, we couldn't deny it. The patterns are there. She took a breath. Tyler, I want to do something about this, we all do. But we need your help. Over the next hour, they talked about possibilities, training sessions, review boards, anonymous case evaluations to check for bias. Judge Henderson had already started working with the court administrator to develop new protocols. She wanted Tyler to be involved in every step. There's a state judicial conference in December, she said. It's where judges from across the state meet to discuss policy and procedure. I want you to present your research there. Tyler's heart started racing. Your Honor, that's a huge platform. Are you sure? I'm absolutely sure. These judges need to hear this from someone like you. Someone who experienced it firsthand and has the data to back it up. Her voice got softer. Tyler, you're 19 years old and you're already making waves. Imagine what you'll accomplish in 10 years. When the call ended, Tyler sat in the conference room for a long time just processing everything. His boss, Mr. Morrison, knocked on the glass door and poked his head in. Everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. Tyler explained what happened. Mr. Morrison listened carefully, then broke into a wide grin. You know what? Take the next 2 weeks. Paid. Prepare that presentation for the judicial conference. This is more important than any case we have in the office right now. Sir, I can't just... You can and you will. Tyler, do you know why I hired you? Mr. Morrison walked into the room and sat down across from him. It wasn't just because you're brilliant, though you are. It's because you care about making things better. That's rare. Most lawyers just want to win cases and make money. You want to fix the system itself. The weeks that followed were intense. Tyler dove into his research, expanding it with new data and preparing his presentation. He practiced in front of his mirror at home, then in front of his mom, then in front of anyone at the law firm who would listen. Judge Henderson checked in with him every few days, offering suggestions and encouragement. His admission ceremony came on November 12th, exactly as scheduled. The courthouse was packed with new attorneys and their families. Tyler wore a suit for the occasion, the first one he'd ever owned. His mom sat in the front row crying again, this time with his aunt and two cousins beside her. Judge Henderson was there too, sitting near the back. When Tyler caught her eye, she gave him a small nod and a smile. The ceremony itself was formal and traditional. Each new attorney stood and recited the oath. When it was Tyler's turn, his voice was clear and steady. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of an attorney and counselor at law to the best of my ability. After the ceremony, there was a reception with cheap champagne and cookies. Tyler's mom hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. Your dad would be so proud, she whispered. His father had died when Tyler was 12, but he'd been the one who first taught Tyler that standing up for what's right was worth the fight. Judge Henderson approached them, and Tyler introduced her to his mom. They talked for a few minutes about the upcoming judicial conference, and then the judge pulled Tyler aside. I have something to tell you, she said, and you're not going to like it. Tyler's stomach dropped. What happened? Word got out about your presentation. Some of the older judges are pushing back hard. They're saying you're too young, too inexperienced, that your research is flawed. There's a group trying to get your presentation canceled. Tyler felt his excitement deflate like a popped balloon. So that's it? They're going to shut me down before I even get a chance? I didn't say that. Judge Henderson's eyes had that steel in them he'd seen in the courtroom. I said they're trying, but I'm not letting them succeed. I've got a dozen judges who support you, and we're fighting to keep you on the program. This is exactly the kind of resistance that proves your point. They don't want to face uncomfortable truths. What should I do? Keep preparing. Make your presentation so good they can't ignore it. Use facts, not emotions. Show them the data in a way they can't dismiss. She put a hand on his shoulder. Tyler, change is always hard. The people who benefit from the current system, even unconsciously, are going to resist. That doesn't mean you stop pushing. A man in an expensive suit approached them. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of presence that made people pay attention. Judge Henderson, he said with a nod. Then he turned to Tyler. You must be the young man causing all the commotion. I'm Judge Robert Winters, presiding judge of the State Appellate Court. Tyler shook his hand, trying not to show his nervousness. Judge Winters was basically the most powerful judge in the state. I've read your research, Winters said. His face was unreadable. It's thorough. Uncomfortable, but thorough. Thank you, sir. Your Honor. Tyler corrected himself. I'm one of the judges who's been asked to remove you from the conference program. He paused, and Tyler's heart sank. I declined. In fact, I'm going to make sure you have the full hour to present, and I'll be sitting in the front row taking notes. Tyler couldn't believe what he was hearing. Sir, Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If your presentation doesn't live up to the hype, I'll be the first to say so. But if it does, I'll be the first to push for real reform. Judge Winters smiled for the first time. You've got guts, kid. Let's see if you've got the substance to back it up. The state judicial conference was held in a massive hotel downtown. Tyler arrived an hour early, wearing his new suit and carrying his laptop in a bag that his mom had bought him as a congratulations gift. The presentation hall could seat 300 people. He'd heard that every seat was taken. His hands were shaking as he set up his laptop at the podium. A tech guy helped him connect to the projector and test the microphone. You're the kid everyone's been talking about, the tech guy said with a grin. Good luck up there. Judge Henderson found him backstage 15 minutes before his presentation. How are you feeling? Terrified, Tyler admitted. She laughed. Good, that means you care. Just remember, you're not here to make friends. You're here to tell the truth. She handed him a bottle of water. And breathe. Don't forget to breathe. When they announced his name, Tyler walked out to a room full of judges. Most were older, in their 50s and 60s. Some looked curious. Others looked skeptical. A few looked downright hostile. He spotted Judge Winters in the front row, notebook open, pen ready. Judge Henderson sat 3 rows back, giving him an encouraging nod. Tyler clicked to his first slide. It was simple, just a title. Justice for All, Examining Bias in Municipal Court Sentencing. "Good afternoon, Your Honors," he began, his voice stronger than he expected. 3 months ago, I walked into a courtroom to contest a traffic ticket. I was wearing a hoodie and jeans. I looked like a typical teenager. And before I said a single word, the judge had already decided who I was and what my case was worth. He saw some judges shift in their seats. Good. He had their attention. But here's what that judge didn't know. I had just passed the bar exam. I'd spent weeks researching case law and gathering evidence. I had documentation that proved my innocence beyond any doubt. And yet I almost didn't get the chance to present it because of how I looked. Tyler clicked to the next slide, showing a graph. This is data from 347 cases across 5 municipal courtrooms in our district over the past 2 years. These are all traffic violations with identical circumstances. Same violation, same circumstances, same lack of prior offenses. The graph showed a clear pattern. Young defendants received fines that were, on average, 40% higher than older defendants. Cases involving defendants who appeared to be from lower income backgrounds were dismissed at half the rate of those who appeared affluent. The disparities are statistically significant, Tyler continued. This isn't random chance. This is a pattern. A judge in the 3rd row raised his hand. Tyler paused. Yes, Your Honor. How do you determine someone's socioeconomic status from court records? The judge asked, his tone challenging. I don't rely only on records, Tyler said. I attended over 100 hearings in person. I documented how defendants were dressed, how they spoke, whether they had legal representation. Then I tracked the outcomes. The correlation is undeniable. He clicked to another slide showing photographs, faces blurred for privacy. One showed a middle-aged man in a business suit. Another showed a young woman in casual clothes. These 2 defendants had identical violations. Both were first-time offenders. The man in the suit paid a $75 fine and received no points on his license. The young woman paid $250 and received 2 points. The only difference was how they appeared. The room was completely silent now. Tyler could see some judges taking notes. Others had their arms crossed. I'm not here to blame anyone, Tyler said, his voice softer now. I don't think any judge wakes up and decides to be unfair, but unconscious bias is real. It affects all of us. And when it affects the justice system, real people suffer real consequences. He told them about his experience in Judge Henderson's courtroom, how she'd dismissed him at first but then had the courage to acknowledge her mistake. Judge Henderson is here today because she wants to be part of the solution. She's already implementing new protocols in her courtroom, blind case reviews, regular bias training, anonymous evaluations. Judge Henderson stood up briefly and several judges turned to look at her. She sat back down, but the message was clear. She was standing by Tyler's research. Tyler clicked to his final slide. Here's what I'm proposing. First, mandatory bias training for all judges, updated annually. Second, anonymous case reviews where judges evaluate cases without knowing the defendant's age, race, or appearance. Third, regular statistical analysis of sentencing patterns to identify disparities. And fourth, creating a more welcoming court environment for self-represented defendants. A judge in the back raised her hand. Mr. Chen, these are significant changes. They require time and resources. Why should we prioritize this? Tyler looked directly at her. Because every person who walks into a courtroom deserves to be judged on the facts of their case, not on their appearance. Because a 19-year-old in a hoodie should get the same justice as a 50-year-old in a suit. Because if we can't be fair in traffic court, how can we claim to be fair in cases that actually change people's lives? The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then Judge Winters stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. Mr. Chen has presented compelling evidence of a problem many of us didn't want to see, Winters said in his deep, authoritative voice. I've been a judge for 32 years. I believed I was fair, but looking at this data, I have to question that belief. He looked around the room at his fellow judges. We can be defensive or we can be better. I vote for better. Another judge stood, then another. Within a minute, a dozen judges were on their feet. Some were nodding. A few were even clapping. Tyler felt his eyes getting wet. He blinked fast, trying to keep it together. After the presentation, Tyler was swarmed with questions. Some judges wanted copies of his research. Others wanted to discuss implementation in their courtrooms. A few still disagreed with his conclusions, but at least they were engaging with the ideas. Judge Winters approached him with his notebook. "I took 17 pages of notes," he said. "Next month I'm presenting a proposal to the State Judicial Council based on your research. I'd like you to be there. Your Honor, I'd be honored." Judge Henderson appeared beside them, beaming. "Tyler, there's someone I want you to meet." She gestured to a woman in her 40s with kind eyes. "This is Director Lisa Chen from the State Office of Court Administration." "No relation," Tyler joked, shaking her hand. Lisa smiled. "Mr. Chen, we'd like to hire you as a consultant. We need someone to help implement these reforms statewide. It would be a 1-year contract, full-time. Are you interested?" Tyler looked at Judge Henderson, who nodded encouragingly. He thought about his job at Morrison and Associates. He thought about his mom. He thought about all the people who'd walked into courtrooms and been judged before they could speak. "Yes," he said. "Absolutely yes." 6 months later, Tyler stood in the same courthouse where his journey began. But this time he wasn't wearing a hoodie. He was there for work, observing how Judge Henderson's courtroom had changed. There were new signs explaining legal rights in simple language. Court staff had been through sensitivity training. The whole atmosphere felt different, more welcoming, more fair. A young man walked in wearing torn jeans and a faded t-shirt. He looked nervous, but Judge Henderson greeted him with the same respect she'd show anyone. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Please approach the bench and tell me how I can help you today." Tyler smiled. It wasn't perfect yet. Change was slow, but it was happening, and sometimes that's exactly how justice works. One case at a time, one person at a time, one judge willing to look in the mirror and do better.